All right, guys, welcome to another Everything Manly podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about purpose and identity and a culture that is completely confused and what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they think success and pleasure and politics is really what gives you purpose and meaning, but that fails them completely. Then we're going to have the biblical answer of what meaning and purpose and our calling is, and then how men can reclaim that meaning and that purpose. But the confusion around this is that cultural confusion around purpose and identity is everywhere. I mean, it's our society is dismantling the male's responsibility. The society is dismantling the male's role. We got what's the popular buzzword? Toxic masculinity.
Yeah, I was
now.
going to say toxic masculinity, right?
Yeah, and so it's everywhere. And so what we've got to do as men, we've got to be able to understand the media is pushing this, education's pushing this, politics is pushing this. It's portraying masculinity as toxic and outdated. You got digital distractions, which we're going to cover in the next podcast in detail. So how do we disconnect ourselves from this flow of sewage in this culture, and how do we plug ourselves back in to understanding what meaning and calling is? But let's talk about this cultural confusion a little bit more, John, and how our culture has done a fantastic job in destroying male motivation to be real men.
Well, I think, from a biblical perspective, that the culture does not like the distinction of roles that the Bible gives. And so because the culture doesn't like the distinction of roles, and I say culture in quotation marks, right?
Sure.
Whatever you want to define that as, but the voices of culture that speak against masculinity, the idea that there are specifically, God-given roles for men and God-given roles for women. Mm-hmm. We're living in a time where we want to erase any distinction. We want to act like there's some fake equality there. It's like it doesn't matter that it doesn't matter what God has said. And I think that if you look at Scripture, there clearly were certain things that God expected of men. There were certain things He expected of the women. And our value and our worth is based upon being created in His image. That's obviously the key. I mean, we're all equally valuable to God, but our roles are clearly distinctive. And I don't think we should be ashamed of having the distinctive roles. And I think that the idea of there being some level of, complement between, men and women, husband, wife, I think that seems to be a biblical model. And so I think when you see culture push so hard against it, this is where it starts. It's like, we don't want to believe what that book says, right?
True, yeah.
And so we're going to ignore whatever it says, and we just want to make our own rules. And I think now you basically, to go back to your point, you've got a bunch of guys who are kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. Like, am I supposed to take a strong stand on things that I think are masculine, or do I just, I don't want to offend anybody,
Yeah.
So I think some guys are just, in limbo about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you some statistics to back up what John's saying. The male labor force participation of prime ages 25 to 54 has declined from 1960. It was the average male from 25 to 54, 97% were in the workforce.
Wow.
Today it's down to 88%.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
So that's over not quite a 10% drop.
Drop in participation.
Yeah, just males, and I think it comes back to some of the points you're making, that some men have bought the culture's lie, hook, line, and sinker, and they're gone. And then some men are just sitting back, just really confused, going, "All right, what do I do?
Yeah,
is my masculinity really toxic?
Yeah,
and do I need to be more feminine?" And so I think it takes voices of reason like ours, and we're just two voices in a sea of voices out there. But when you understand what it means to be a man, when you understand what it means to be a male, you can have a backbone and go, okay, what my society is yelling at me is a lie.
Yeah.
Because what it's doing here, and another statistic I want to talk about is 60% of male suicides show that they have no documented mental health condition. So that just simply tells me that men can only be beat on so much by society if they don't have other men around them strengthening them. If they're too busy with their heads in their phones or whatever it may be, and looking at the cultural trends, right, you're going to see this degradation. You're going to see this lack of involvement in the workforce continue because they don't have another voice in their heart and in their minds. And so that's why it's so important for us to talk about this and have this discussion about this, because it's vitally important to expose the confusion and to call it out for what it is. It's a lie.
Yeah.
Now, do I want you to go out there and be a bullhead, beat on women? No, I'm not saying that. I'm not talking about being abusive. That's just being ignorant, being stupid, right, and you should be put in prison if you abuse somebody. But I am talking about being a man that has a strong backbone, who has fortitude, who wants to work hard, who wants to be diligent, who wants to put his hands to something and really grow something, and be a man. So we've looked at some of the statistics. We've looked at suicide rates, and there's also this thing now called quiet quitting.
Yeah.
Where people, where men are just in this escape mode, where they're just given over now to phones or pornography. They're not dating. They're not pursuing a woman. They've just given up.
Yeah, and they just don't come out and say it.
Yeah,
and it's not just guys. Obviously, it's women too. But
sure.
But clearly, it's a thing where you just sort of are exasperated, and you're like, whatever. I mean, there's definitely a true toxic masculinity, which is what you were talking about, abusive guys, stuff like that. I think what's being called toxic masculinity is probably not toxic at all.
It's just masculinity.
It's just masculinity, right? It's it's just. But I mean, it's kind of like you see it even in young boys, right? Like you hang around somebody that's got some kids, and they're young boys, and they just do things that are completely different than my daughters did, right? And it's just there is a dynamic that is wired into them to do, whether it be maybe there's the level of risk taking or whatever, the adventurous aspect, whatever it might be. There's just elements in it that you can tell from. There's an intelligent designer who has they've made these distinctions, and we've tried to erase, and we've talked about this for a long time, but our culture has tried.
And this was one of the reasons why we started this podcast.
Yeah, because like our culture has tried to erase those distinctions, just to say, well, we don't want this young boy to act like what we think a boy should be. We want him to be able to act like whatever he wants, which is something that he's not. And so it becomes then, like you said, a lie where you're saying, I need you to pretend to be something else, right? And it's just a confusing thing. So now we're seeing a generation of kids who are coming up, and our generation is looking at this going, man, we didn't fight with this in the 80s. Like we kind of knew who the men were. We knew who the women were. Nobody was confused. Yeah. And now we're talking about raising a generation of kids that are in elementary school talking about they're confused about, what it means to be a boy or what it means to be a girl. And so we're seeing the after effects of it now, on a regular basis. But I think that there needs to be some guys who are willing to kind of reclaim and say, what, it's okay. It's okay for me to teach my daughters, right?
Yes.
Here's what masculinity really looks like. And it's not about how much you can bench press, whatever else. But here's what masculinity looks like, so that they pursue someone in their life, right, who is masculine in that way, that's an honorable way, and not someone who's toxic, right? And so that would be like my concern in my case with girls in my family. But at the same time, if you're a guy listening, you got boys, then you need to be teaching these boys. Here's by modeling. Yes. Here's what real masculinity looks like. I'm a dad who's got purpose, I've got meaning, I've got value in God, I love my wife well, I lead well, those kind of things. And I think those are the things we could really say as men. Let's emphasize that stuff. Let's hit those highlights, to help these young ones, the boys come up and then the girls see it. And I think that's a God-honoring way of doing it.
That's a great. I love the way you painted that on this, almost like a spectrum, right? You raise the girls up to look for these godly characteristics in men. You raise men to be godly men.
Yeah, true.
And so that is the cultural confusion driving right at the heart of manliness and manhood. Culture is trying to make it something totally opposite. But when you come to the Bible, when you come to the Scriptures, you find your meaning and your purpose. In the Westminster Catechism says it well, that the man's chief end is to glorify God and to enjoy Him forever. Yeah. And so when you understand your role as a man, and you understand your role as a woman, and you become one, you become married, you covenant together to become married, and then you have this nucleus that can go out into the world and propagate and breed purpose and meaning. Now you have men who want to be providers, you have men who want to be protectors, you have men who want to do their God-given roles. And so when you come to the Bible, not only do you have answers for your salvation, for eternity in heaven forever, you now have the DNA, the structure, the foundation that you need in order to be a man, in order to be a woman, in order to live in a society and be productive. And now you have what it means to be human, and your purpose is now flowing down into your stewardship. Now you have this stewardship and this responsibility given to you by God to learn trades or to start a business and to work hard and to have be a provider for your family. And all these things are just building blocks for society. Now, when you are living out your purpose, when you're living out your role within a society, society is just going to be better.
Yeah.
And I think this is how you need to begin thinking as a man. You need to be able to look at your culture and what it's doing to you, or however you want to define it, and how it's trying to push you into its mold, and that mold is constantly changing. You're going to be like a shapeshifter. What is it? I forgot what Marvel Comics was that, but this thing can take many different shapes, and that's what if you're looking at what your manhood should be from your culture, you're going to constantly be thrown all over the place.
Depends on what day of the week, right? what you see, you know.
Like what's flavor you want.
What it wants to be, And I mean, you know, if a guy's abusive, if a guy's selfish, if a guy's not modeling those things, then he's clearly not glorifying the Lord with his life. And so if you're a young man watching that, you'd say, you know what, I don't want to be that kind of guy. And if you're a young lady watching that, you'd say, that's not the kind of guy I want to be with. You know, a guy who's not glorifying the Lord, because you would want to be the kind of man who models something bigger than yourself. You're serving a master who's not, you. And I think those are the kind of things you want to model as a dad, as a brother, for example. If you got a brother, say, hey, man, I want to be this kind of guy so these other ones can see it in me. And I think there's honor. I mean, there's honor in hard work. There's honor in admitting you don't know something and learning something, right? Those things are noble traits. They're noble things to do. And I think that our culture, just wants guys to go hide in the corner and not say anything and not speak up and not be, not be vocal about things. And I think that part of what guys can do is to say, you know what, I'm going to live a life of purpose. And part of that purpose is to glorify the Lord. It's going to be love my family well, lead my family well. And I'm going to learn contentment. And I'm going to learn contentment in simple things where I don't have to be better than the guy beside me, lives over here, the guy over here. But like, this is the world the Lord's provided me with, like this nucleus, as you say, of my family. And I want to love them well until the end. And, I want to finish my race and die tired.
Amen.
And just push through. And I think that is a God-honoring way of going. Yeah. And, stop worrying about stuff that you can't change. And so anyway, be that kind of guy. I
think it's a great point. And to add to that contentment part, not only can be contented in the nucleus God has given you or the family God's given you and the sphere of influence, but to be committed.
Yeah, 100%.
Like to be committed to your work, to be committed to your wife, to be committed to your children, to be committed to your community, to be a pillar, to be that guy that that somebody can call on and they can get advice or they can get help or they can get just wisdom because of the experiences you've been through in life. I can't say enough about the picture of it is just putting roots down and learning a trade, working hard, starting a business, whatever it may be that you feel the Lord's calling you to do. Going to trade school and learning a skill. And these types of things gives you the foundation you need financially. It gives you provision for your family. It gives you meaning and purpose. And now you've got something to give back to your community. You've got something to give back to your society rather than consuming. You now giving back.
Well, I think about like we talk about community a lot because we live in a small town and we think about the people. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
But like we joke around, at least in my circle of friends, and we talk about, man, so and so knows a guy. Everybody's got a guy. You gotta get this guy.
Yeah.
And I think about sometimes like you want to live your life in such a way that you know your purpose, and you realize, man, I'm not going to do everything. I can't do everything.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be really well at it. Do everything well.
No.
But like I want to be that person where at some point along the way they go, man, I got a guy, and John's that guy.
Yeah, yeah.
You want to live in such a way where it's like somebody can count on you.
Yeah.
And say, yeah, I got this guy, man. Call this guy. He's the guy. And like, I think there's so many guys because they don't know their purpose. Like they just don't have that stability that, like you've said before, they just sort of have pulled back in their relationships. They pull back personally, whatever. Maybe they're not even in a relationship, but they pull back to the point of like quiet quitting. Man, I just give up. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And what I think you and I are getting at is like, man, you ain't got to do everything. But figure out what God's called you to do,
Yes.
and do it well, and,
Yes.
and learn along the way, and get some advice, and be that guy. Be the guy they can count on.
I mean, because if you look at our society, I was walking around with a friend of mine at a baseball game, and he's like, "I just want you to take a moment, Tommy, and look out over the stands." And so we're just looking at a mass of humanity.
Yeah, sure.
He says our society is infatuated with entertainment, and the majority of these people, this is what they live for, because the majority of people don't have any purpose and meaning in life.
Yeah.
And so what John and I are describing to you, the way you find purpose and meaning is first and foremost have a relationship with the God that created you.
That's
But
right.
once you come to Him, there's practical things that apply that deepen this purpose and meaning. Like, so for example, I was reading in 2 Chronicles. I'm not going to do a Bible study, but if I want to, I will, but I'm not. Right? 2 Chronicles, there's this guy there named Hiram.
Yeah.
And he sends Solomon. So Hiram is a king, and he sends Solomon another guy named Hiram Abba. And basically Hiram tells him, I'm going to send you Hiram Abba, and you just tell him what you want, and he'll build it.
Exactly.
Right? Whether it be stone, whether it be wood, we're going to cut the cedar trees in Lebanon down, and we're going to float them down on rafts. You guys can pick them up and take them to Jerusalem. Whether it be metal, gold, so bronze, silver, gold, you just tell him what you want it to be, and he can build it. I want to be that guy.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
guy.
I want to be that guy that someone can call him, hey, man, if you need something, here's the guy you can call on.
Yeah.
Right? He can, just like you said, I got a guy.
I got a guy.
I mean, and so want to be that person, no matter what that may be. Maybe it's electrical, maybe it's plumbing, maybe it's carpentry, maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe it's just advice. Maybe it's just, hey, I know you've been through this. What do you think about that? Just once again, you have to be that guy, but you have to be in your community. You have to have purpose. You have to have meaning yourself. And when you come to the Lord and He gives you find out what your skill sets are, you now have a reason to wake up every day and put your boots on and go do something.
Yeah.
I mean, I just look at my life. Every day I wake up, I'm just glad to be alive. I got some more stuff I can go do.
Yeah.
And I want you young men to be excited about life. I don't want you to go, oh man, I got to go do this today, or I got to do that today. There's sometimes that, yes, life's just going to suck. You got to pull yourself up and just go do it.
Right.
Like I was helping a friend the other day. I was like, dude, this just really sucks.
That's right.
But you know what? We got a job to do. We got to get it done.
Yeah, but you got to keep showing up. You got to get up and just show up.
Yeah, just show up, man.
Just show up, man, every day.
So, young men listening to us, or men just listening to us in general, there is a place in life for you. You can find purpose and meaning. You can find skill set. But you've got to push against the lies of your culture to reclaim the purpose and meaning that is waiting for you when you find what the Lord wants you to do, and then do it with all your heart.
Well, and I think just as we close, just think about discernment. You're not going to stop hearing the voices of culture, But the issue is for the guys that are really trying to move forward is to say, be discerning, hear these voices, weigh them against Scripture, weigh them against reality, and say, is this really truth, right? Is this really what a guy, is this what a guy really is like? Is this, and I think it'll become more clear. You'll be sharper and sharper as you move forward. And it's not the kind of thing you're going to go announce to your family, like, hey guys, I've been listening to this.
Sure,
but it's like, just pay attention, man, and you'll hear this stuff, and sometimes it's so silly that you go, that's not what a real guy is, that's not real. And you'll just know, even if you're not a Christian, I think there's a lot of guys that just aren't even believers, but they go, that just doesn't sound right. And just the discernment feature of life, and just turn that switch on and say, man, I'm going to discern these voices and say what's truth, what's not.
Amen.
And of course, I believe you seek the truth, you'll find the Lord.
Amen.
But nonetheless, I think that'd be a thing for a guy, whether it be a guy that's young married dude or a young man growing up, high school kid, whatever, just thinking about what is a real man like? Help me, Lord, show me how to be the best man I can be.
And I think the way to close this, you've already touched on it when you talked about just showing up. And elaboration of that, I think, is just taking the small steps. Every day waking up. If you got a job, hey man, going and working to the glory of God on that job, no matter how bad it sucks, no matter if it's just digging ditches or pumping sewage, I don't care what it is. If you go there, you work hard, show up, be excited, God's going to take you to the next step. I mean, and that's just what your culture may not be telling you, but what the Scriptures tell us to do is to work hard, to show up, and to do hard things. I don't want to belabor that point, but I can't emphasize that enough, because that is a godly characteristic of a man, is to show up and do hard things. So anyway,
that's right.
All right. So don't believe the lie of your culture. Get into the ancient book, get into the Holy Bible, read it, see what it talks about true masculinity being. We're just giving you some principles to apply. Hard work, integrity, finding a trade, learning a skill, starting a business. All these things come from you reclaiming your manhood and not listening to the lie of your culture. If you ever need just some advice, shoot John and I an email on the Everything Manly the website, and we'll get back to you. But no, we praying for you. We appreciate you, young men, pushing against your culture and reclaiming your manhood. And I'm going to say it. All right, don't be a pansy. Go out there and be a man.
That's right.
See you next time, guys.